Hey everyone, my name is Bobby Bennett. I'm the creative director here at Union Chapel, and typically I'm behind the camera in some form, doing photography or videography, working with our teams on telling stories here. But today I have the really wonderful privilege of opening up the Bible, getting some notes down, and walking us through the next section of the Sermon on the Mount. And so we will be in chapter 6, verses 1 through 4, as Jesus teaches us about giving to the needy. So let's go ahead and get started. Jesus starts by saying, "Be careful not to do your acts of righteousness before men to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets to be honored by men. I tell you the truth, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." It's only 4 verses, but there's just a lot that's packed in there. Honestly, it's a struggle to kind of focus on what I want to talk about today, but there were 3 things that kept surfacing. One is Jesus seems to be giving a warning. There's a warning that he wants us to pay attention to. And actually, in the coming weeks, he'll be making the same warning again and again. Second thing is there is a reward. He kind of mentions 2 rewards here, but there's one that he wants us to focus on. And then the third thing is this all leads us to the secret place. Now, he doesn't call it the secret place, but what he's describing is a secret place between you and the Lord. So let's go ahead and get started by just simply asking, what is the warning that Jesus is giving? And to start off, I just want to make an observation. I don't think the warning that Jesus is giving is this. I don't think Jesus is warning that good things done with wrong motives can't be effective. Because if you think of, the poor, the needy that are described in this verse, well, they're still being helped, even if those who are helping them have the wrong motives. The second thing is bystanders can still be inspired to do sincere works of good, even if their examples are hypocrites. And then third, kind of on a larger scale, the kingdom itself, the culture of the kingdom, can still grow, it can still move forward, even if the people, the followers, a part of it, have their own hidden agendas. And so I just want to emphasize, Jesus is not simply warning that if you want to be effective, that you have to have good motives. He's not just worried about your effectiveness. Now, to illustrate this point, this reminds me of Paul's letter to the Philippians. He has somewhat of a kind of a wild statement that he makes about advancing the gospel. And he's like at the grassroots level as the early church is moving forward and eventually becomes where we're sitting and talking about this stuff still today. So in Philippians 1:15 through 18, Paul writes, "It is true that some preach Christ out of envy and rivalry, but others out of goodwill. The latter do so out of love, knowing that I am put here for the defense of the gospel," here being jail at the time. "The former preach Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerely, supposing that they can stir up trouble for me while I am in chains." And Paul concludes, "But what does it matter? The important thing is that in every way, whether from false motives or true, Christ is preached. And because of this, I rejoice." Paul recognizes false motives can still produce real impact. And so to even further this point a little more, I just want to read a section from Paul's famous letter to the Corinthians that's often used in weddings. Maybe you've heard this. This is the famous, love is patient, love is kind. But right before that whole section, Paul actually makes a pretty similar warning to that of Jesus' warning. And so it reads, 1 Corinthians 13, "If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship," or other translations might say, "give my body over to the flames, that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing." So consider this. You can advance his kingdom. You can even perform miracles, give everything you have to the needy, and lay down your life. And you can do all that with false motives. And Paul's conclusion is this: without love, you are nothing. Without love, you gain nothing. Or in Jesus' words from our section, "If I do all this simply to be seen by others, that will be my only reward. I will have sacrificed much and gained nothing." What might be helpful to ask is then, what is the reward? What is the worthy reward to work towards? Well, I'd like to reference just one more passage from Scripture, and it's a bit more of an obscure verse that I think really begins to connect the dots. So this is where Jesus has sent out 72 of his followers, 72 disciples. He has kind of his main 12, his 12 apostles, but 72 are sent out to nearby towns, villages, areas to preach the gospel, to heal, to cast out demons. And they all come back. And in Luke 10, 17 through 20, it describes their response as they get back. It says, the 72 returned with joy and said, Lord, even the demons submit to us in your name. And he replied, Jesus replies, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. However, do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. Rejoice simply that your names are written in heaven. In other words, our reward is not the gift. It is not the influence. It is not even the good works that we've been given to do. Our gift is simply to belong to the kingdom. And more specifically, within the kingdom, the reward is three things that I just want to point out. One is God himself. In the kingdom, you know and are known by the king. You have a friendship with God, something that only you two share. Second is his people. And so in the kingdom, you know and are known by those made in the image of God. You've got loved ones, friends, families, neighbors, strangers, even enemies who you've been reconciled to. And the third thing is the place itself. If you feel like you've never belonged anywhere, you've always been an outsider, you're in good company. You finally have a country to call your own. Here, this is where heaven and earth have been reunited. All that is crooked is made straight. Death no longer reigns, and peace has the final say. And so the question then is, how do we become people who choose the better reward? Because all that sounds really great, but even as I'm saying it, I'm like, this is the stuff, I'm paid to say in church. I'm supposed to say this. But it's difficult because, in a sense, what we're suggesting is that we need to invest ourselves in actions, invest our money, our time, our talents, all the things we can see and things that we just can't see yet. As in, when I pray, I don't always hear a voice back. When I give, I don't always see if it's going to work out. And really, it's the question often underneath our actions, which is, how do I know if it's all going to be worth it? I think that's really driving a lot of what we do. What is the reward? What is the goal? How do I know that loving my enemies, even at the cost of my own life, will be worth it? How do I know that giving to the needy, even if it never changes anything, will be worth it? How do I let, in Jesus' words, my left hand not know what my right hand is doing when it comes to generosity? How do I know that that's going to be worth it? And I think it's part of the tension is we want to be people who are wise, who won't blindly and wastefully just throw resources and time at something. We want to be calculated to some degree, but also Jesus just seems to keep challenging the way that we measure outcomes. And so I think for the reward to begin to become real to us, we must enter the secret place. Now, here in the secret place, I know I keep saying that, the secret place, we build a friendship with God that no one else totally sees or knows. This is where God is becoming our reward. And in a sense, we are getting a taste of what we're going to experience face-to-face in heaven. But also, this is a thought that's come to mind in recent years, is I'm 30 years old right now, and someday I'll be 31, then 32, 40, or 50 if everything's going well. And I'm never going to get this time back. And on one hand, it's like that's a really great thing because I know heaven's going to be far better than what we're experiencing now. But at the same time, down here in the trenches, there's a way of knowing God that I'll never get back where faith is actually required, where I'm praying and I don't necessarily hear a voice back, where I'm not face-to-face, where I don't necessarily see what my investments of time and talent will actually lead to. And there's something in the struggle and the tension of that actually costs and requires something of you that I think is really precious. And I think it's not just precious to me, but I know it's really precious to the Father. As in, I don't think he's just waiting and biding his time to finally get to heaven where it's all going to be good. I think there's some really good, irreplaceable moments he wants to have now with me as a 30-year-old, in all my ignorance and all my weakness, that are going to be irreplaceable. So for that alone, just building a relationship, again, in that hidden place, just between you and God as a friendship, is something that, though it may seem strange, it may seem like you're talking to an imaginary friend, you are beginning the work that will, in a sense, lead to what heaven's going to be like. But I also want to touch on this point, is that also in the secret place, we learn to not work necessarily for a reward, but from it. And what I mean is we're not necessarily working for a reward from here on earth, where what it gives eventually will be taken away from us. But we can actually give freely to the world around us because we've already been given something that won't be taken away from us. Another way to put it is we're freed from asking, will it be worth it? And it really does change how we love people. We need the secret place because it frees us from using God and others to get a reward. Either God and others will be the reward, or we will use them to get a different reward, and it will be one that actually won't last. And so when we get to that point, we can finally freely love others without condition and without really needing anything from them. We don't need our kids to turn out all right to be worth our best efforts. Our coworkers don't have to be kind or likable for us to show them love. We don't need to see dreams come true or lives to be worth it to still find joy. And we don't need to limit what God can do in our lives by our own measures. And so I don't think God is asking us to do things in secret just to challenge us, just because it's difficult. I think he's asking us to do it because it will free us. It's what the world needs. It's what we need. And it just also happens to be challenging. And it seems before us are two rewards, and Jesus is warning us. If you choose one, it might be something you can see, and it might be something you can measure, but it will be the only reward that you get. It's all you're going to get. But the second one, you might not be able to see it. It might take some faith, but in the long run, it won't be taken from you. So I hope you feel encouraged, maybe challenged, and we're going to enter now into a time of small group discussion.